Hi, this is Paul Acevedo of Windows Central, here with a video review of the Titan One, which is a gaming accessory for the Xbox One, PlayStation 4, Xbox 360, and PlayStation 3, as well as PC, I guess. What the Titan One does that is really amazing is it lets you play one game system with the controllers from another game system. So to test that out, we are going to play on Xbox One and Xbox 360 using a variety of controllers. Before we start testing it out, let's have a look at the Titan One itself. Here's an LED panel. This lights up to show you different messages or numbers because you can have 8 or 9 profiles on it. Here's the USB input port, which is how you connect controllers to the Titan One, although it also does support some wireless options. Then on the side you have a mini USB port. Wish it was micro USB, but whatever. And that is how you connect it to the PC to use different PC software. So here I've got my Xbox One, and we're going to go through how to use different kinds of controllers with it. So first thing I do is plug the Titan One into my Xbox One's USB port. When I do that, it lights up with this AU message. It's not ready to be used yet, but we'll get there. One caveat with the Titan One is that you have to have a controller that belongs to that game system to use to authenticate your controller. Basically, before I can start using this with any different kind of controller, I have to plug in my Xbox One controller. And I have to do that by micro USB. Now at that point, I can remove the Xbox One controller, just unplug it. On its own, it will stay blinking, but I can actually turn it all the way off. The system doesn't know it's been removed. So I took the battery out, the controller is off, and now I can use whatever I want with it. So let's start simple and go with an Xbox 360 controller. Xbox 360 controller is in. Over here the profile is lit up with 0, and I can push the little button to change to a different profile at this point if I want. And look at that, I am changing menu options. So the most fun thing to test with will be Halo the Master Chief Collection. Let's do that. Alright, now here I am playing Halo. Just push A to start it. I think one fun thing to do will be to load up an Xbox 360 Halo game, such as Halo 4, and play it with a 360 controller. That's giving you the most authentic experience possible, right? And here we go. Starting with a sniper rifle. Nice short 360 analog sticks, not overly long like the Xbox One sticks. Run over here, melee him. And it is completely responsive. I do not detect any lag at all. I'm sniping like a pro. I've got other guys running up to me. So now let's pause and try a different controller. Just got that authentic 360 experience on. And I believe I will switch to the PlayStation 3 controller. I'm going to do it wired. It's the easiest way to do it. If you want to use Bluetooth with PlayStation 3 and 4 controllers, you can do that, but you need a little Bluetooth dongle, and you have to go through some setup on the computer program. Got my PlayStation 3 controller all ready. And look at that, I'm running around. These analog sticks feel a bit loose. Grunt birthday party. Oops. So, I bet that's something you never thought you'd be able to do, is play Halo with a PlayStation controller, right? Controller's a bit lighter. It's got its own little, not easily changeable battery inside instead of AA's, is the main reason. Now, gonna hop off of that. Now we'll connect a PlayStation 4 controller, which requires micro USB instead of mini USB. Much better. There we go, the PlayStation 4 controller is on. Push the PlayStation button, it acts like the guide button. All the buttons and sticks, they map perfectly to what they would be on a 360. Starting Forza up. And look at that, I am driving around with the PlayStation 4's much different trigger buttons. Whoa. PlayStation 4 controller has some pretty good vibration. Not as good as the Xbox One's, which has got those fancy rumble triggers. But more than good enough. Actually, driving with this controller feels really good. The advantage here is that if you're more comfortable with a PlayStation controller, then you can be playing on the Xbox One and you don't have to deal with the differences in controls. You know, you've got the exact experience you would have when playing on your PlayStation system. Now, I think in general you're better off just learning to use the Xbox One's controller or the PlayStation controller on, you know, on its respective system. But still, like, there may be a game that you play at a higher level, like a fighting game or a first-person shooter, and you're just really, really used to one particular controller, so even though you can play fine with another controller, you're at a slight disadvantage. And that's where the Titan 1 comes in really handy. Another time when it would be great to have a Titan 1 is if you own an arcade stick for a previous generation system like PlayStation 3 or Xbox 360. You can use those arcade sticks on your new system just by plugging them into the Titan 1. You know, there's no hassle there. It's just perfectly smooth, and it keeps you from having to buy a new expensive arcade stick. By the way, by default the touchpad doesn't do anything. I think people might be able to set up profiles in which the touchpad acts like a button, but it doesn't do that by default. And controller profiles is another special thing. Basically, using the G-Tuner Pro software on PC, you can set up these special profiles that can give you, like, rapid fire and different features, swapping buttons or even disabling a button. Like, a variety of different things you can do. Some of those things actually lean towards cheating, and that's not really great, but on the other hand, nobody is making you use those things, so if you're opposed to cheating but you like the idea of using a unique controller, you can still do that. And there's even a Tournament Edition firmware for the Titan 1 in which you cannot do anything special, like cheating-wise, and supposedly that would allow you to play in some fighting game tournaments. Okay, now we've switched over to the Xbox 360. I'm going to plug the Titan 1 into it. Then I need to plug in my wired 360 controller for authentication. Whatever controller you use to authenticate, you cannot use as a second player controller. Like, that controller is basically occupied as long as you're using the Titan 1, because the system thinks that controller is whatever controller you're using with the Titan 1. Now we got that sucker authenticated, and the most fun and obvious thing to do with it will be to switch to an Xbox One controller. Xbox One controller in some ways is superior to the 360 controller, not in every way, but it definitely has nicer triggers and vibration, that's for sure. Then let's just launch up a game real quick. It looks like we're playing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Danger of the Ooze from WayForward Technologies, one of my favorite developers. So here I am, running and jumping around with Raphael. Hold right trigger and I can select different things. Hold left trigger, I can change between the different turtles. And now I'm Donatello. So if you got used to the Xbox One controller and you find it hard to get back to the 360 controller, then here's your solution. There's my guide button, the home button. We'll go back home and let's switch controllers and games. Now if I want to try the PlayStation 4 controller via Bluetooth, I have to plug in this little Bluetooth dongle. There's different Bluetooth dongles you can use. This one was provided by the Titan 1 people. So plug that in, it takes up the USB slot. Now I want to turn on my PlayStation 4 controller here. And look at that, I am playing wirelessly with a DualShock 4 over Bluetooth. Really cool feature. It'd be nice if there was a Titan 1 that had the Bluetooth built in, you know, like a more expensive Titan 1. But I can understand why you wouldn't want to do that, because that's more expensive for them, obviously. Alright, I've just hopped into Serious Sam on the Xbox 360. And here I am. Let's see. Left bumper, L1 jumps. Got different kinds of weapons and stuff here. And I'm playing an Xbox 360 game wirelessly with a PlayStation 4 controller. Gotta admit, that's really cool. I much prefer the 360 controllers and the Xbox One controllers for ergonomic reasons. But there is nothing wrong with DualShock 4 and DualShock 3. Both are very precise controllers, and their D-pads are decent. Not my thing, but still decent. Now for my next trick, we are going to use the Saturn pad with the Xbox One. That's something I've always wanted to be able to do, is use the Saturn pad with all the downloadable classic games you can get on 360, and eventually the Xbox One. And with fighting games especially. Okay, now that I've authenticated my Xbox One controller, I've connected the Titan 1 to my PC via mini USB cable, and then I connected whatever non-standard USB controller I wanted to use to my PC. I don't have to connect the Xbox 360, One, or PlayStation 3 and 4 controllers to the PC. Those just go straight in here as I showed you earlier. But for anything that isn't one of those four, you gotta run it through a PC in order to use it with the Titan 1 and your console. So I could use mouse and keyboard if I set that up, but what I'm going to use is the Saturn pad. So the Saturn pad is connected to the PC, and you can see I am able to move through menus and stuff. Now, which Xbox One game is perfect for use with the Saturn pad? You might already know it is Killer Instinct. Now remember, the Saturn pad didn't just automatically work even once I plugged it in the computer. I had to go through the G-Tuner and Max Aim DI software. G-Tuner makes it easy for you to download Max Aim DI, then you have to figure Max Aim DI out. That's direct input. It's what allows you to capture input from controllers like this and use them. So I used that software to set up what each one of these buttons does on the Xbox One controller. And then you'll notice the Saturn pad does not have all of the same buttons as an Xbox One controller. It is, besides missing the right analog stick, which doesn't matter, it's missing view and menu. So to get around that, I've got start programmed to be the menu button. So start is start, basically. There's no home button and no back button, right? No view button. But don't worry, we've got that plugged in. I created a script which assigns those to button combinations. So my home button, start plus right trigger. Look at that, bam. Went back to the dashboard. Pretty cool, right? The original Sega Saturn was a great system for fighting game connoisseurs. It had the Street Fighter Alpha games on it, as well as a great many other fighting games. This pad is perfect for fighting games. It's got a really useful D-pad, the 6-button fighting game layout, and then you still got triggers for like all 3 punches and all 3 kicks. And this is a beautiful thing. The Titan 1 is so versatile, you know. The G-Tuner Pro software and Max Aim DI are not super user-friendly. Max Aim DI, a little bit easier to figure out to use than G-Tuner itself. But there are a lot of tutorials online that you can use on the Console Tuner website. Some of the tutorials are written in kind of broken English, which is a shame. But generally anything you really want to do, you'll be able to figure out to do after you put a little time into it. But plug and play wise, you've got those 4 main controllers that will automatically work in any of those 4 systems as long as you authenticate a controller properly. And that is really, really awesome. And then the fact that you can do things like use a Saturn pad or a PC flight stick or steering wheel is a lot of fun. You gotta put some time into it, but you'll get out of it what you put into it. So for a controller enthusiast like me, the ability to use all these different controllers with whatever game system you want is just irresistible. The Titan 1 costs about $60. It's definitely worth it. And you might want to get a USB Bluetooth dongle as well if you're interested in using the PlayStation controllers with Bluetooth. And I've got a lot more to say about it too, so check out my full written review at windowscentral.com. Thanks for watching.